This is Blue Nile Tutorials. Here, we'll break down the auditing process step by step, starting with the planning process. Planning is the foundation of a successful audit. It involves understanding the client's business, identifying risks, setting materiality thresholds, and designing audit procedures. Key steps in the planning process include understanding the entity, analyzing the industry, operations, and internal controls, risk assessment, identifying areas prone to misstatements or fraud, audit strategy, developing a roadmap for resources, timelines, and audit focus, communication, aligning with the client and audit team on expectations. Let's dive into the details. This video is going to walk you through the planning process of an external auditor. We are going to cover the purpose of the plan, how the auditor spots risks, the audit strategy, materiality and performance materiality, and the written audit plan to be included in the audit file. ISO 300 states that the objective of planning the audit is to ensure it is performed in an effective manner. Indeed, the purpose of planning anything is to ensure it goes well, and so the more effective the plan, the more effective the audit will be. There are some key reasons why a plan is so important for an audit. It will ensure the auditor can give enough attention to the more problematic areas. It gives the auditor time to assess the risks associated with the audit before they start the audit work. They are able to plan appropriate audit procedures in relation to these risks. They can select the right level of experience needed on the audit team and consider the need for experts and assistance from internal auditors, which can then be planned properly. This should all ensure that the audit meets deadlines so that the financial information can be presented on a timely basis. The first stages of an audit process must include the audit team ensuring they will not have any problems being able to follow their ethical code, and ensuring they understand the specific requirements of this audit client by reviewing the engagement letter. Initially, the audit plan begins with identifying potential audit risks. This is the risk of the auditor providing an inappropriate opinion, for example, reporting that the financial statements are true and fair when they are not. The auditor must assess risks using the audit risk model, identifying inherent risks, the risk of material misstatements due to the nature of the entity, control risks, the risk of material misstatements due to poor controls, and detection risk, the risk of material misstatements due to the auditor not spotting the error. There are two main pieces of work that assist them in identifying anything that could increase these risks. These are analytical procedures and understanding the entity and its environment or knowledge of the business. Analytical procedures are a comparison of financial and non-financial data to help the auditor understand material changes in the financial statements. Used at the planning stage, they will have a set of draft financial statements that they can compare to the previous year, industry averages, and any budgets or forecasts produced. With the use of ratios, they can identify changes in balances, which may then need to be investigated when carrying out their audit procedures later on. At the planning stage, once identified, they can design audit procedures that will focus on any areas where more investigation is needed. Understanding the entity and its environment is important, as if the auditor lacks a fundamental understanding of what the client does, there is a real risk that they may make poor decisions and issue an inappropriate opinion. Thorough investigation of what the client does, through the audit firm, through the client themselves, any external sources, and using the auditor's expertise, will enable them to find anything that could indicate the audit risk could be higher than expected. Once any risks have been identified and considered, then the auditor must produce an audit strategy. The audit strategy is to identify the overall plan for the audit. It always comes before the detailed plan, as it enables the audit team to see what should be included and how much work will be required. We can separate the audit strategy into three components. The auditor will need to consider the scope, the timing, and the overall direction of the audit. The scope is the specific details relating to the audit for the client. This could include the auditor identifying how many locations the client has, so they can plan where they need to travel to. It could include the systems that the client uses and whether there have been any changes, for example, a new upgraded financial reporting system. This would require the auditor to ensure the system is reliable and is understood by them, which will take time. These specific details relating to the client are now identified so plans can be made to address them during the audit. The timing of the audit is also important. The audit team must ensure they provide their audit report in a timely manner so that the financial information can be presented at the AGM to the shareholders. The auditors therefore need to consider when areas of the audit process should be completed by. They should book audit staff so that they are available to be part of the team and arrange when they are visiting the client. Depending on the size of the entity, the auditor may need to include an interim and a final audit. Medium to large size companies usually require both, so there is enough time to complete all of the audit work. An interim audit will take place before the year end. This can be shortly before the year end where much of the events have already occurred. Here they can plan, assess control systems, and perform some of the substantive audit procedures on transactions that have already occurred. This then frees up much needed time after the year end for the final audit, where further substantive testing and completion and review procedures are finalized. The direction of the audit is where the auditor decides what style of procedures are required and the volume of work needed. Based on the work to identify risks and some review of control systems, the auditor will be able to determine whether control systems look reliable. If this is the case, then the direction will be controls-based, where they conclude systems are reliable and sample sizes and the overall level of work needed for the audit can be reduced. If control systems look unreliable, or there appears to be many indicators of high audit risk, the direction is procedural. There will be detailed audit testing, larger sample sizes, skilled staff needed, and more time. One of the important decisions to make at the planning stage is to decide what is a material misstatement. Remember, if something is material, it means it can influence the users of the financial information. The auditor has guidelines to follow on what materiality can mean in relation to the financial statements. Something can be material by its size or by its nature. If an item is material by size, if incorrect, the auditor would request that the client correct this in the financial statements. If they don't, the auditor would conclude that the financial statements are not true and fair. The guidelines on materiality are that an item is material if it is above 5 to 10% of profit, 0.5 to 1% of revenue, and 1 to 2% of total assets. At the planning stage, the auditor must decide what basis they are going to use and what percentage. They use their own experience and judgment to decide this. For example, if the company has many high audit risk indicators, and they believe there is a risk of many material misstatements, they may choose to lower the percentage, for example, set at materiality at 5 or 6% of profit. This will allow them to investigate more misstatements in detail. If they feel that profit may be distorted as costs may not all be present, then they may select revenue to calculate what materiality should be. Some balances by their very nature are going to be material to the users. A prime example is directors' transactions, which must be transparent to the users. If the auditor finds any misstatements relating to this, they must be corrected regardless of their size. The auditor must also consider and set performance materiality at the planning stage. This is a smaller amount than materiality, usually a percentage of the materiality they have calculated. The idea is that if any misstatements identified while performing audit procedures are above performance materiality, they are recorded. This is usually in a spreadsheet often called the summary of unadjusted errors or evaluation of misstatements. At the end of the audit process, at the completion stage, this spreadsheet is reviewed. The auditor is looking to see if there is an accumulation of smaller errors that actually add up to a material misstatement. The auditor would then request that this group of errors, which are now collectively material, be adjusted in the financial statements. Let me give you an example. Let's say a company has a profit of $20,000 and a set materiality at 10%. This means any misstatements found that are $2,000 or more are material to the users and should be corrected. The auditor also sets performance materiality, let's say 20% of materiality. This means any misstatement above $400 should be recorded on a spreadsheet to be reviewed later. The auditor then performs their audit procedures and finds the following errors in the payables balance: $500, $1,600, and $1,400. In isolation, none of these are material. However, they all relate to the same balance and collectively add up to $3,500, which is material to the users. In this example, there would be a request to amend the financial statements for this amount. Once the auditor has spent time on the audit strategy and considered details relating to the audit client, then they can put together the audit planning document. This document is the detail. It proves whether the auditor has planned the audit properly and includes all information needed to then carry out the rest of the audit process. Remember, this is not set in stone. Things change, and if things come to light that mean the conclusions made at the planning stage are no longer appropriate, then the plan must be amended. The planning document must be completed before the audit work begins and should be stored in the audit file. It should include the following: assessment of materiality and performance materiality, details from the analytical review performed at the planning stage, key audit risks, background information regarding the client in understanding the entity, any specific laws and regulations, staff booked for the audit team and budget set, the overall audit strategy, and deadlines set to ensure the audit process is completed on time. With the detailed evidence now in place, the auditor is now ready to continue the audit process and follow the plan to ensure an appropriate opinion is decided on the financial statements in the audit report. To summarize, we have covered the purpose of the audit plan, some specific reasons, and the overall it is to ensure the audit is effective. But the auditor spots risks relating to the audit by performing analytical procedures and understanding the entity and its environment. They must then decide the audit strategy, where they consider the scope, timing, and direction the audit should take. Materiality by size and performance materiality must be calculated specifically for the client, using their judgment and the guidelines set for auditors. And a planning document must be prepared including all of the detailed decisions made for this audit. This plan may not be set in stone and could be amended during the audit process if necessary. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching.